And now I'm honored to welcome and invite on stage the members of the key FAST executive panels. Please welcome David Bloom from Forbes, Laura Florence from Chicken Soup for the Soul, Nick Mehta from BBC Studios, Scott Olechowski from Plex, Erick Opeka from Cinedigm, and Katherine from VIZIO. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Hey everybody, I'm David Bloom, write for Forbes and Next TV and other places that'll have me. Been part of this group in a little way for a long time, helping on the awards. I will just put a little shout out there for the Impact Awards that OTT.X does. I think we're going to be opening up submissions soon. If you have stuff that makes a social impact, please consider offering it up. It's becoming a really interesting little awards thing to note programs that matter. So I don't think Mark needs to promote it more, and Erick needs to promote it more, so we're just trying to encourage all you folks to think about it with all your great stuff. Real quickly, I'm going to let everybody on this panel briefly describe why they're here. So what makes them key FAST executives. There's a lot going on in this business right now. It's really an interesting time at the new fronts and the upfronts, and now the OTT.X fronts. I'm going to be up front with you. There's a lot of fronting going on. But there's also a lot of FAST channels being announced. There's a lot of stuff going on in this industry, so it's going to be fun to watch. Let's start at the end with Laura.
Good morning. Did I do it right?
Project, just project.
Good morning. I'm Laura Florence. I'm the general manager for Crackle Chicken Soup for the Soul and Redbox. I was brought on to start the FAST channels for Redbox. So we created an infrastructure for channels, as well as we now have 15 syndicated channels that we schedule and run as well.
All right, Nick.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I head up business development and operations on the FAST and VOD sales team at BBC Studios. So supporting our strategy and growth for the 12 channels that we currently have live in the Americas, more to come this year. And before that, I was on the content partnerships team at Tubi.
Terrific. Erick, who you may have heard of already. That's you, buddy. Oh, Scott, I'm sorry.
Nice try. I'm Scott Olechowski. I'm one of the co-founders and run product and business development at Plex. We're an app that helps people discover what to watch, where to watch it, and we have our own, one of the larger AVOD catalogs, one of the larger FAST lineups as well, and we're available on all streaming platforms and other form factors like web and mobile.
All right, now Erick.
Thanks, David. Hi, Erick Opeka. I'm the President and Chief Strategy Officer of Cineverse.
Something.
Muscle memory. We just rebranded
what's it?
yesterday.
Yes.
Cineverse. We're a streaming and technology company with really a focus on the broad ecosystem of channels and content on a global basis.
I just got to say, the next time you guys have a brand change, you need to let these guys know more than a day beforehand so they can change their slides out. I mean, for God's sakes, you're like the chairman of the organization, for goodness sakes. And finally, Katherine.
Hi there, Katherine Pond, Group Vice President of Platform Content and Partnerships at VIZIO. We are one of the top connected TV platforms here in the United States, really a complete entertainment company, including data, entertainment, content, and advertising. I look after both our distribution partnerships for our third-party applications, as well as our owned and operated service, WatchFree+, which has over 260 free ad-supported streaming channels and over 6,000 on-demand assets. It's the #1 fastest growing ad-supported entirely free app on the platform. #2 ad-supported.
Great. Now, one of the things, I guess, to start, as I mentioned, the business is exploding right now. It felt like everybody who had 5 shows to put on was announcing a FAST channel in the last 2 months, or more likely 100 FAST channels. We're going to have a lot of FAST channels, and I'm just curious. I wrote something about this for Next TV. I was predicting we may be seeing a rerun appropriate for the FAST channel business, which is all about reruns, of the streaming wars, that we may have so many channels out there, we're going to have to get back into much more aggressive marketing, originals, other ways to differentiate. So I guess I'm curious about how you all plan to thrive in an era of plenty, as in plenty of channels and plenty of advertisers and plenty of audience viewers, but cut across a whole bunch of channels. How are you going to thrive? Laura, let's start with you. What the heck? I hope we got an on button there.
Thanks, man.
Let's try that.
How's that? How's that?
You
There
must
we
have
go.
a cone of silence around you, like, get smart.
So the unique thing about all the different acquired companies under the Chicken Soup brand that we represent now is we have production studios, we have a distribution studio, and then we have 3 different platforms that have clear kinds of lines of sight of what they represent. So between all those entities and then what we're acquiring for, right? So let's say Redbox, new release movies is what drives content. So for us, we're creating a collaborative experience with the new releases as a customer comes in with the free content. So if it's Super Mario Brothers comes out, what is animated kids shows we can, promote, let's say on AVOD, or is there something that's transcendental that they could see as well as on a linear experience? So the goal is to help provide a holistic experience in that scenario, but also using our production content, which has really good margins, to help to amplify that experience for us as well that makes us unique. So Crackle Originals, Chicken Soup for the Soul Originals, as well as other content that our production companies are creating, that they might be partnering with other people in a first window, but that we have ancillary rights to. So it's...
That's just to make it clear, so you all do originals, but they don't typically originally show up on your channels. Somebody else helps pay the bill.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes they debut directly with us, and then we have partnerships because of our syndication partnerships, where we can actually monetize those originals, and they're branded as originals. There's a lot of Crackle originals actually.
It feels like Netflix definition of originals all over again. So.
Except that we're distributing farther and wider than just Netflix, which is keeping it just on their platform. Helps to kind of monetize the life cycle of the content.
Right.
Also using transactional, DVD, other things that still are ancillary lines to make sure you're getting every piece of monetization you can out of that piece of content.
It's a little different for the BBC, which is, of course, antithetical to advertising, but less so once they came to the States and got ruined by filthy lucre. So Nick, how do you guys navigate, I guess, the BritBoxes and Acorns and all the rest, and all those people who love, apparently, people wearing anoraks in more fog-shrouded moors investigating yet another murder in a small English town?
That's a great way to put it.
I don't know how anybody's left in those small English towns. Aren't they all dead or in jail?
Believe it or not, there's actually a lot of diverse programming under the BBC brand.
And a lot of small towns with
and
dead people.
There are a lot of murder towns in the UK. It happens, yeah. I mean, it's a great point. We do have a fast channel called BritBox Mysteries that serves essentially to, show audiences what we do have within the BritBox brand. It's a selection of crime genres within.
There's a murder mystery lover right there. You heard him, right?
And what we find is, we do approach our strategy. We consider 3 buckets: supporting the direct-to-consumer offering like BritBox. We also have another bucket of single IP channels, so single series like Top Gear, classic Doctor Who, and we have an Impossible quiz show. Just really diverse, brands within that single series IP bucket. And then finally, we have a 3rd bucket of genre channels where it's cross, titles. We have a channel, BBC Earth, that has a lot of great recognizable, brand awareness already built in, and we find that's, a great way to bring an audience in, and then, we're able to use the fact that it is across different titles to, create more stickiness, to create more brand awareness of all the different, IP that we have under that. And to go back to your earlier question, I think what we're also really excited about, going forward is finding ways to partner with platforms to find, every platform has a different audience. We're looking into, bespoke channels, customization that will really suit that platform's audience. And it's, I think that's what's really exciting to us and what we are looking forward to, in the years to come.
So to put a finer point on this, you are actually thinking about all those platforms where you could be, and they are starting to acquire their own character of audience and quirks and idiosyncrasies, and you're tweaking the content that you suggest, hey, we can do this, or we'll tweak it for you to better fit whatever manifests for your set of offerings.
Exactly. It's a collaborative partnership, and we're lucky that we have such a wide catalog that we can explore different ways and different programming stunts around that and their audience.
Right. Now, Scott, you're a platform. So you're the one, I mean, and Katherine is too, so we'll get to both of you in a bit. But you guys have to figure out what you're letting on. I mean, I guess you could let everything on, but that feels a little overwhelming. So are you picking and choosing in some way? Are you highlighting in various ways? How are you managing this profusion and this explosion of viewing options?
So, since we sit in the middle and can aggregate across, so many.
That's why we have him where he's sitting too, by the way.
The peanut butter in the middle of the sandwich here. So, being able to aggregate across all this stuff and being independent, we're not a studio, we're not producing originals, makes it a safe place for our content partners and for our users, right? Because they know if we're recommending something, it's a genuine recommendation targeted at them, not just to, promote what we're promoting or what we would, maybe take the most advantage from. So our view is like we're trying to aggregate as much as we can, afford, and then through the experience and through the other tools that we provided, what we call our Mediaverse, which has every major TV show and movie in it, with our universal search and our universal watch list, all these different signals try to basically connect people with the content they care about when and where, as efficiently as possible. So if you're on mobile, you're probably looking at stuff a little different than Friday night on the couch in front of your TV. And since we're across all these different form factors and across all these different platforms, that's our job. We view it as our job to provide the best experience and connect people efficiently to what they're gonna love.
So to be clear, Plex has been around, I think, since Gutenberg, right? They were aggregating movable type back then, I think. But, I mean, you're like, what, 14 years old?
Yeah, that is so old.
So it's like you were in junior high or something when it launched. So it's been around in a lot of iterations. And that brings me to young Erick Opeka, whose company is no longer a paradigm, but a universe of Cine. And what's that all mean now?
Well, I think if you really kind of step back and take a look at the whole streaming landscape, we found something that was quite shocking. We looked at, for the top 10 streaming services in North America, and you can extrapolate this globally, what percentage of movies and shows were available on those services. And you ask most people and they say, I don't know, 40%, 50%. And when you actually tally it up, and guess what? I see some people in the audience who actually had to do that tallying. It was a lot of work. It's around 2.5%, right? So we think about, the promise of digital being this diverse array of choice, this ecosystem of endless possibilities, and what it's really evolving into is a hyper-curated and hyper-focused, verticalized version of the universe that is walling off choice. It's very similar. I look at, you look at the potential of social media and then what it evolved into, where your feed only feeds you back what you want to see. It's this echo chamber that you live in. But I think one of the things that we really look at and say is, movies and shows are common collective culture. And what happens when, DVD is going away, transactional is falling out of favor. What happens to that diverse array and ecosystem of movies and shows when that happens? And you can look to the past and look at, I'm a fan of film history. Most silent films don't exist anymore. It's not because they weren't good or they weren't valuable or there wasn't merit to them. It's because of technological change led to their literal disintegration. And I think we are sitting in a
Well, they would have disintegrated regardless of technological change. That's, they turn into vinegar, basically. So.
Good point.
Yeah.
But we don't want a digital version of vinegar syndrome decaying our common cultural
so no bit rot is what you're saying.
No bit rot.
No bit rot.
So our vision of the world is let's figure out how to make the whole darn thing accessible to everybody. You know, it works for Google, it works for Spotify. Let's take a crack at it. We love tough challenges, and so that's our long-term goal and mission is to gather and organize that collective community of world content and make it readily available.
Now, I think it's useful to note, I think you guys are the 6th largest streamer in terms of total traffic, is that right?
I mean,
collectively, all your different channels?
You know, depending
Speaking
on
of
how you
tallying.
slice and dice it,
Yeah.
you know, I see some marketing folks out there, they probably want me to hit that point. But the bigger point I would say is it's not, today we're in the race, but I think the long-term vision for us is how do we do this at such a scale and with such availability? We've already solved the technical part of encoding and bringing movies to people at scale, right? I think we added 9,000 titles in March, for example. We can do that all day. The bigger challenge
And apparently you do, so I mean,
right.
It's like 9,000 a month is all day and all night.
Right.
That's a lot of stuff by itself.
But the bigger, as you alluded to, the bigger challenge is how do you make that accessible and searchable? So that's, you know, I can dive into that, but I don't want to hog the time.
Okay. Laura, I think I would be remiss if I believe that my pal Peter Benizeski, who's your head of communications, has mentioned that you all are like 10th. I mean, if he's 6th, you guys are like 10th. And
Yeah, in our combined entities.
yeah,
that's
you
correct.
combined, so, and you guys sell across all that based on whatever audience people are looking for. So
Right, and I think that's where having, this is working, the syndicated channels plus the O&O platforms, as well as like our historical reach with Redbox, like when you look at all the different entities, plus ad rep deals and other things, the environment's actually very, very large, so it's finding the customer where they are and the opportunity. Again, to your point too, which kind of content's gonna work is unique for each platform, each place, each opportunity, so having a larger library depth and being able to surface that correctly is the thing that helps discovery. So that's what's helped us is the distribution endpoint strategy as well.
okay, now Katherine, my recollection in terms of scale again, you all are the #1 U.S. TV maker by sales, is that correct?
So we're one of the #1 connected streaming platforms in the United States.
One of
yes.
the #1? There's only one #1 where I come from. I'm not good
One
at
of the
numbers.
top.
I just want to say that
So-
there's usually one #1.
So yes,
That's why it's
a very,
#1.
A very fair question. David, it's a good thing we're good friends. All right, so here's how I'll
Great.
answer that for you, David. Here's how I'll answer that. It depends on size class in the United States, right? And so VIZIO has been out in the United States for over 20 years now. We're in our 21st year distributing TVs here in the United States. Our connected streaming platform is doing very, very well. And depending on size class at any given time, we may be #1, we may be #2. But really when it comes down to it, the number of VIZIO devices installed in American households is massive. And that's really how we have the reach that many of our advertising clients here in this room today are looking for.
So it's like 16 million households that are in your addressable body, if I recall.
Yeah,
right?
it's actually over 17 million based on our
Time
last public
flies.
number.
Yes.
Yeah,
So, and you all are also the #2 soundbar maker or something like that?
that's correct. Yep.
Yeah. So you can make noise while you're doing it. You can have sound with your ads. It's really awesome. But WatchFree Plus is your streaming platform. It's a couple of hundred channels?
Yeah, we have over 260 channels today.
Yeah. And because you're the queen of curation as well as partnerships, how do you decide those 260 channels get on? How did folks out here get to be part of your party?
Yeah, I love this question, and I love it because I feel like everyone up here has hit on different aspects of it, right?
Right.
So I think Laura talked a little bit about how you bring unique content onto the platform, and that's absolutely something that VIZIO is looking to do. We recently had our spring showcase where we launched over 13 unique and exclusive channels and TV shows and movies that you couldn't find anywhere else. So that's one way to partner with VIZIO. You know, I heard Scott say something that really stood out to me too, which is partnerships. And that to me is really key. I think many other platforms in the market are just looking for content. We're looking for partnerships. We're looking for those opportunities to lean in together, to bring in the content that we are able to partner together on that really resonates with audiences.
How does that manifest, though? I mean, I gather that it needs a much deeper relationship and back and forth and iterative process, as I'm guessing what that means.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that ties directly to what Erick was saying too from that is what does that look like? It's the sharing of data to create that custom curated experience.
Wait. You guys share data?
VIZIO does, yes.
That is weird.
Yeah.
Don't tell the Writers Guild, because they'll just go nuts.
So when it comes to our data, what I would really say is we have the opportunity to work with our content partners to help them understand what's working. And look, at the end of the day, if you want to create a great experience for consumers, you need to be able to work with everyone that's a part of the ecosystem to create that best experience. And I see lots of nods out here as I'm saying that. That means if I help the people that are distributing content onto our platform learn more about what's working, it's a better experience for consumers. They can be better programmers. They can be better distributors. They can better acquire content. And
I would think their marketing would be significantly improved too, knowing, okay, this is working, let's double down on this, or let's get some other shows up adjacent to that, right?
Absolutely. You know, and for us, that's really pairing not just the data that we're getting from our Watch Free Plus service, but the data that we have from our Inscape ACR data, which allows us to say, this is what's working in linear, let's go ahead and bring that into this environment and create a new experience for our consumers.
So that's an important thing. So you know, for instance, in ways that Netflix isn't excited about, I'm sure, you know what's actually on the screen from whatever source, because it's your screen, and you can say, okay, this kind of content's working for this household, or this set of households.
Yeah, so really leaning into that idea around the data that is flowing in, whether that's platform data, whether that's third-party app data where we have that data, whether that's through linear. And then I'm going to go back to Erick's point, which is really bringing that all together. I think for so long in this industry, we talked about search and discovery, and it's still really, really relevant and very, very important. But the next step beyond that is personalization. When you've got 260 channels, it's not just, oh, how do I find the one channel, right? It's our job is to serve that up for the right customer at the right time and pair that with the right advertiser to make it the best ecosystem and best experience possible.
But it's really, it seems to me that the challenge and the opportunity that some of you at least are able to offer is your integration, like what Redbox is doing, or Chicken Soup for the sole enterprises, which just rolls off the tongue, Bill. Just rolls off the tongue. But the point is that you all can integrate across different kinds of platforms, media delivery things, and take that data across those to optimize. It seems to me that that's one of the crucial things here. That's what Plex is trying to do, right?
Yeah. I just want to echo Katherine's comment. You know, the interesting thing for us is, as the platform, right, you know, our goal was to help our partners understand what works. And I think optimizations, especially of fast channels, there's so much room for improvement between the ad tech and the customer experience and the programming itself.
It's really painfully early days, right? I mean,
even then, I think it's just the communication back and forth of like what it is we see as the platform that you're not going to look at every day, right? At the same time, too, as a programmer as well, different things work on different platforms. There's different types of even just display of how the customer engages with the channels. If it's art, right, for us, art is very important, and others it's more algorithmic. So just echoing that, like that environment for everyone in this room is going to help us all succeed, because if it's not, the customer is going to find something better, right? And so
it feels like people have been kind of discovering that fast could be a thing just in the last, I don't know, 38 minutes or something. But because of that, it's not as plugged in the way that Katherine's talking about across the ecosystem. It's not as plugged in to take advantage of those other signals that are coming in from the different related media from which you often get your shows, right? That linear thing becomes a fast channel at some point, or part of one soon enough, and knowing that is really going to be crucial for optimizing in the future.
Yeah, it's not just the optimizing too, right? It's the other ad opportunities of, hey, you're watching HSN and you want to buy this asset, and it's, you know, how do I make that easier, right? And that some of the Amazon integration tech and other things that are happening in the space that are really exciting, but making it easy and seamless for the customer. So yeah, lots of room for growth in the space. The question is just how efficient are we going to be able to make it together? Because each one of us doing it on our own is challenging. But
Right. Nick and Eric, how do you guys, what's your sort of best practices in creating a fast channel? When you structure one, you've got like 33, I think, over at Cineverse Dime place.
Well, to go back to your thought, your last point real quick about fast, you're absolutely right, the 38-minute comment. And I think when technologies emerge, they have a tendency to look backwards for the basis of paradigms. So, you know, you could pluck someone out of 1996, put them in front of a lot of these EPGs, and they would be almost perfectly comfortable.
It's the same show, even. I mean, it's
some of them are the same shows.
It's like I watched that, you know, like Rugrats in '96 with my kids, you know, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
They would say, "Wait, what is this flat TV?" But
where's the rest of it?
But beyond that, this experience is quite the same, right? And I think that's one of the things that we kind of think about and say, how do you make that better? You know, I think in 5 or 6 years, we're going to look back at the early days of FAST and say, well, wasn't that quaint that we just stitched a bunch of the same show together and put out a HLS playout feed? The reality is these should be dynamic and personalized to, you know, I was just in the car driving from the airport here, and Spotify's, you know, AI DJ. It's still a little wonky. I don't know if anybody's tried it, but ostensibly that is a customized playlist that is dynamically driven based off of a lot of data points, and I think FAST will look more like that in the future.
You mean more like YouTube?
More.
Right. I mean, if you think about
Never heard of them.
the origins of FAST, really, if you kind of think about it, this current incarnation was Pluto TV, which was curating YouTube, right? They were making sense of the morass and linearizing it into a familiar package to increase consumption.
I agree 100%, and I think the people who will win with that are the ones who have the rights to do that, right? So one of the things in the early days here with FAST is we're finding windows of content that have the FAST rights but don't have AVOD rights, so you can't do it on demand, so doing dynamic stuff is harder. So I do think as the rights evolve, you'll be able to do more of that with higher quality content over time, and those that do control the rights and have more flexibility there will get there faster.
Yep.
So, Nick, real quickly, how are you all building it beyond the murder mystery in the small village channel?
So a few examples from our single series channels. Just going back to the point about algorithms and, you know, stitching together a single series in that way. We don't do that. We have a fantastic programming team that looks at the content, looks at what's going on in the culture, what the platform's marketing stunts are coming up, and we will do stunt programming around that. We'll tailor it to the IP itself. Like, for example, we have our classic Doctor Who channel, which is from the years 1963 to 1989, literally has a finite number of episodes, but we've been seeing increasing audience engagement because of how we lean into things like the cast birthdays. We'll do, you know, a marathon around that. And from that, we're able to, you know, reach the loyal fans of the brand, but also bring in new fans because they realize this is a fresh channel. This isn't something that's just stitched algorithmically. This is something that's dynamic, and also it's just a lot of fun to experience.
I'm speculating, though, that there is not a finite number of classic Doctor Who episodes because they come from other universes, so other Cine universes even. So they just port them in, and yeah, so it's actually unlimited.
Do you mind if I just want to?
Yep.
Do you want to do a shout out? I think this has been the fun not argument about classic programming versus AI optimization, and we have this amazing partner, Virtual AI, that has been helping us with automation and the hard parts of scheduling, but also optimizing the uptime for ads within a played hour, as well as data performance of how content is performing. So there's been this like lovely balance too of the programming, the stunts, all the things we want to do, but taking some of the work out of it. So just we found like a happy balance of that that's helped to optimize to like our staffing and approach to it.
So the AI found it for you. right?
Yeah, virtual AI has been like an amazing godsend for that. So
Okay.
I just to give them a shout out.
That does bring up another question that I think is interesting, which is how do you, and BBC has a particular challenge, but so do places like HBO, when you make a show without ads, without structure for advertising, with a mini cliffhanger every 7 to 8 minutes, et cetera, how do you work around that? What are the best practices? What are the approaches to optimize, to generate revenue around a show that's built not to be broken up? Is it all AI and sponsorships on the front end, or what is it? What's the deal?
Sure, yeah. There is the editorial challenge of ensuring that we're not sticking in ad breaks at disruptive times. We don't use AI, we don't use machine learning. We have a programming team, because the other side of it to find these ad breaks is we don't want to disrupt the editorial flow and continuity of the story that's being told. We of course have to follow our platform partners' ad guidelines when it comes to ad pods and when we can insert them. But that's all. But what we've seen also is, because we don't cut to clock, we're not pay TV. We don't have to follow a traditional 1-hour block schedule. We don't have to worry about editing down the content. We can still ensure that we're serving the audience with the content that they want, with natural ad breaks, which increases watch times and actually makes all parties, advertisers, audience, platforms happy.
But so you all are by hand saying this ad here and this ad here and this show, whereas at Redbox CSSE, the AI is assisting.
No. So that's for the programming. So for us, and I encourage everyone, if you're not doing this already, right? We started doing this Gravitas years ago, is you should be generating ad breaks on your content the minute you make it, right? So that there is that process that is, you can do an AI run
So with
on
your
it.
originals, you're structuring it, even though it may run clean through.
You should still be finding the natural ad break when it's
it
required.
It should go to black at some point.
Yes, and you got to find the natural break of that, and it might not be at the hard 8 to 10 minute mark, but there are guidelines out there, right? For Roku and others you have to follow, but if you can do it at the origination point, you have it for the life cycle. There's also other partners that if they have curated those, they'll actually output them for you, but they're really, really important to do those specifically. Even if there's some auto generation to it, they should be hand-checked by a programmer, by the editorial team, because you'll immediately lose a customer. That's a terrible experience. So
Right.
we do a mixture of both.
Right, yeah. I want to look forward. Erick, you briefly mentioned if we 5-6 years from now, we'll look back and say, God, what were those people doing, basically, to paraphrase. But what does this industry look like 5 years from now? Katherine, what's the business look like?
I think
Everybody has a VIZIO TV, obviously. So.
clearly. And then we are definitely number one when you all buy one. So there we go. So what I will say is I think there are a couple things that we've touched on here that we're doing well, but that we have the opportunity to continue to do better, right? I'm a tech geek at heart. I really love the product. I love the technology. And I think there are so many things that we haven't really even tapped into yet in the FAST environment and the AVOD environment. So that's better using voice. That's the opportunity for shoppable. That's the opportunity to create bundles. And I know bundles is like a repeat of 10 years ago, right? But I still think that's something that's coming for us here. Continuing to focus in on personalization, and I'm going to continue to use that phrase, like the complete consumer experience, because I think when you talk about, hey, how do we make the best ad breaks? How do we make that at the natural point in the content? And then how do we make sure that the tech on the advertising side is continuing to ensure the right ad to the right consumer at the right moment. VIZIO has invested a lot in that. And I think that end-to-end experience, the content all the way through, whether that's because I'm using my voice to launch a channel and then I'm watching the exact content that I knew I wanted to watch and I get that targeted ad that was meant for me, that is the complete experience. And that's where I think as an industry, we're gonna continue to see enhancements and improvements and continuing to kind of use all of the great geeky technology that I love to create that complete consumer experience.
Okay, Erick, what do you think? I mean, I just want to throw out a little note. I happened to run across some stats on eMarketer. This year, non-pay TV subscribers, which they say includes the virtual MVPDs like YouTube TV, is outnumbering now the pay TV subscribers as of 2023, somewhere in here, that those lines crossed. And so we're well on our way to the post-cable era. We're kind of there. We're crossing that Rubicon. So what's that look like 5 years from now? Do we even have?
How dystopian do you want me to go?
Oh, dark. Go dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm all kidding aside, I think it's a pretty bleak environment for the legacy media companies. You know, it's funny, we've been doing some variation of OTT.X conferences, X fronts, the marketing, there was a predecessor, and I look back at some of the notes, and everyone was sort of laughing about the idea that cable was in trouble, and I think, we're seeing the early stages of what happened to the newspaper industry in 2008 is about to happen to the cable industry.
And that was a fun time, let me tell you. As somebody who was there, I had more horses shot out from under me than George Washington. It was kind of amazing to watch.
So we're seeing the early stages of that, but I think 5 years from now, I think the outcome for cable television is probably going to be worse than what anybody is imagining right now. I think
it's going to hit faster than the projections.
It's going to be faster than the projections. They seem to be accelerating.
Certainly that was the case last year, right?
So what I think this means is this, right now you can see it. Fast are the lifeboats, but there's not enough lifeboats for big media to take every slot on every boat. So I think what you really are going to see 5 to 7 years from now is a rapid refocus and shifting, a realignment from pay television to fast being, the predominant means of advertising. I think you're going to see many new models emerge in discovery. I think AI, beyond being sort of project and tool-based, will be at the core and heart of not only fast and streaming, but many more products than we have today. And I think we're going to see the early stages of some new competing entertainment that, if anybody's played with some of the generative AI for video, there's a whole, just the same way, YouTube and mobile video 15 years ago didn't really exist. 10 years ago was nascent. It's really over the last 5 to 7 years that it's become the stranglehold in people's daily lives with multiple hours in some cases of consumption. I think you're going to see new forms of entertainment emerge around generative AI that we can't even contemplate. I'm saying that's more like 5 to 7 years. I think but the AI space is evolving so quickly,
right,
that you just look at Mid-Journey version 1 versus Mid-Journey version 2 versus
ChatGPT 3 versus 4.
Let's just say did anybody see like some of the fake commercials that were very terrifying, but
I mean, it's terrifying enough to go to McDonald's, but
but look back at the early,
right,
exactly.
Right.
But if you look back at early iterations of the photo generation, it was similar, right? And that was 18 months ago, and now you're getting near pixel perfect images. So I just think 5 to 7 years is a very long time for lots of new and interesting things to come along, and I think my whole point, when I said this earlier in the opening remarks, is collectively we all need to be incredibly flexible. Just think about how much we've already all had to iterate in the fast space alone. I think that's just going to be the nature of entertainment is constantly, the rate of change is accelerating so quickly. We have to all be ready and willing to adapt to new models, new ways of thinking extremely fast, and you have to partner with each other, all of us here in this room, to be able to accomplish that.
All right, Scott. I don't know what Plex is going to look like then, but I'm really curious what you think it's going to look like another 5 years down the road.
Yeah, I think we're going to, everything that's been said, I think the experience is actually not going to suck. I think that the compute power,
that's progress. So that's big progress, right?
That's big progress.
The experience won't suck. It'll only be 5 years. You can hold out.
I think right now it is clunky. I think a lot of this stuff could be much, much better, much smoother, much more intelligent, much more personalized. I think there's real money in this space now when we're connected. It's not just money for the subscription services, it's now for free content, and there's a real market here. We're all trying to figure it out. The technology is going to improve so fast. And I think that encompasses the entire experience, right? From the minute I sit down on the couch, everything is going to be better. We are also focused on not just personalizing based on the interactions that you do, but discovery is such an important component of the experience, right? What should I watch next is probably a topic of every dinner conversation, and we're bringing social pieces to the platform so that you can connect with your friends, so that on the screen or on your phone you can see what they're watching, what's trending, what they're rating things. That Erick is a silent movie buff. If he loves it, I might love it, and have different people that I trust for that. So to me, I think it's going to get more. The experience is going to get better. It's going to be more enjoyable. There's going to be more money for all of us in this, and it can be social at the same time. So that's, I think, where we see things headed.
So good on the fast side, not so good on the legacy side. Speaking of legacy, will the BBC have been sold by the Conservatives to the EU in 5 years?
Not going to comment on that,
Not gonna
but I'm
comment on
happy to
that,
say that we're very
Probably
excited about the
wise.
future of fast.
Yeah, all right. But where do you see what you guys do and what the industry as a whole is going to be? How do you all fit in, and where do you go?
Absolutely. I think, again, echoing what we've been saying for the last 40 minutes, we do see a lot of opportunities on the content side for premiering new content. I think fast channels are going to have the kind of brand identity that will be ubiquitous, will be very consumer-facing. And what's nice about the BBC is we have the opportunity on our channels to bring content that has never been seen in the US before, just by the nature of our catalog. And I think we would be seeing a lot more of that, a lot more exciting new ways to premiere content. And again, it all comes back to collaborating with our platform partners to see what could make sense for their audience and what opportunities would be exciting to pursue.
My recollection is the BBC claims 100 years of content. Not all of that has video attached, but 100 years of programming of various sorts
Yes.
that could be restructured.
Quite a catalog. Yep.
Quite a catalog, yeah. Some of it's pretty good, particularly all the dead people in small villages. Laura?
I think the one thing I would say is just a foundation of having been with Beth when they were talking about digitizing, right? The depth of the library was, and what Erick was saying, is having your libraries ready to pivot, right? So many of the libraries we're working with aren't digitized. They're not ready. They don't have the cue points. They don't have the time codes. They don't have all those necessary material. Artwork isn't layered. Like, there's so many pieces of just getting your libraries ready, right?
They're not ready for prime time, basically, whenever
not,
prime
right?
time is, right?
So the opportunity for undiscovered opportunity in old library is there still, right? I think the other piece is just the speed to market is one, but for us too, it's understanding like what the space is. We don't have to be everything for everybody. Like, our audience is value in movies, right? And we're gonna focus on that opportunity to make it easy for the customer to not get burnt out and to discover what they need. So I think that's it too, right? There will be a lot of consolidation. There's gotta be an easier way to discover. Also, just decision paralysis is a real thing. And I'm genuinely excited to see what each company solution is to that. I've heard some really interesting opportunities too with Plex, right? Of ways to just make that experience easier for the customer. So, but for us right now, it's focusing on what it is we do well and what our customer is just asking for, rather than trying to do everything and be really good at that, while everyone else still evolves. But we don't have to be Amazon, right? So that's what we're looking at right now.
It's good that you don't want to be Amazon. It may take a little while to get
Yes,
there. I mean, I
yes.
know Bill Ruhana has some ambition, but that's a big one.
of sight.
With that, I think we're going to wrap it up and get back 2 minutes so that we get a little closer back to on time. Thank you all, and give these guys a big hand.